right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Ryan Zimmermas. I am the lead Economic Recovery Program Manager on the Economic Recovery Division at DED. Today, I am joined by the incomparable Abra Kataka. Abra, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Abra Kataka. I'm the Program Manager for the Rapid Grant and Youth Talent Workforce Development Grant for the NSORG programs.
Yeah, and Abra and I are super excited to be here. This is the second installment of our live application workshop series for the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program, or NSORG. So today we're going to be looking at two programs, and it's the two programs that Abra is helping manage. First, we're going to look at the rapid grants, and that's going to be the first half hour or so of today's segment. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back at 11 o'clock and talk about youth, talent, and workforce development.
Let's do it.
Yeah, lots in store, lots to work through today, so we're going to jump right in. So we've got the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program webpage pulled up on our website. If you're not sure about how to navigate to that webpage, we do have a video that we recently posted on social media that walks you through how to get to the main webpage and some of the different resources in there. So I'll refer you to that one. But today, I think we're going to start out by kind of the first thing that we want to look at when we're thinking about applying for a grant under the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program, which is going to be the program manual.
Right.
So if we scroll down on the webpage here, we're going to get to the section here that says Program Resources. And this second link here is the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program Manual. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to start at the top here and just point out we are on version 1.1, so we made a few tweaks to the program manual to clarify some things that were a little bit unclear for folks the first time around. We've summarized all of those changes in the record of change. So in that table of contents here, page 24 is the record of change, and we've got a rundown of some of the tweaks that we made to hopefully make this a little bit more clear.
Right.
So I think the first question for you today, Abra, if we're interested in learning a little bit more about the eligibility requirements around the Rapid Grant Program, what part of the program manual would be a good place to start?
Right off the bat will be section 3.
Okay. So
for
let's
the
get
funding
down there.
Categories description.
So section 3, okay, and you said funding categories, funding restrictions, here we go, 3.3.
And Rapid Grant will be, I believe, number 4.
Okay, yep, so here's the specific funding category restrictions, and you said rapid grants is the fourth one on here. And here we go, rapid grants. So what kind of information am I going to see in this section of the program manual under rapid grants?
So you're going to see what this funding category is. So basically what we're looking for Rapid Grant is to target projects that are small, quick win, just like the name says, rapid. So small funding, but are expected to make like big impact in the community, in the economy, in Omaha, in the Omaha communities. So these grants are going to be limited to up to $2 million. So you read a little bit about that under that funding category to see the restrictions and who's eligible to apply.
Yeah, well said. So let's break that down and walk through who is eligible to apply. So the basic eligibility requirements for rapid grants. So first of all, if you've tuned into any of the materials we've put out before, any of the different emails we've sent, you'll remember that in order to be eligible for the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program, you have to be listed in the coordination plan or appendices, that Olson plan, right? From the Special Economic Recovery Committee of the Legislature, and that's based on the statute.
Yes.
So that's number one before we even get here.
Right.
But once we know that we're in either the coordination plan or appendices, where do we go from there? So what kind of organizations can apply for rapid grants?
And first, that's the first thing you're going to see under that section, actually, eligible nonprofit. So you have to be a nonprofit organization. So right off the bat, and then priority is given to organizations or projects that are listed in the coordination plan. So if you want to switch over to the coordination plan, this is specifically.
Yes, let's do that. So we're going to go back to the website here and flip over to the coordination plan and just walk through a little bit how we can navigate that document, because it's a pretty long document. I think it's like 80 pages. So
Yes.
under who is eligible to apply on the website, you'll see some links to a copy of the coordination plan and appendices. So we click over here.
Yes.
This takes us to the Nebraska Legislature's webpage.
Yes.
There's a couple different options. This first one says Economic Recovery Special Committee Reports, and the second one is Appendices, and I'll zoom in a little bit here. Which option do I want to click on for if I'm interested in learning about who's eligible for a rapid grant?
So rapid grants right off the bat are going to be on the first one.
Okay.
So once you expand that,
Yep.
so that very first one is the coordination plan. Organizations listed on here, and you do want to look at all the tables of content, because those are very helpful for rapid grants. It'll be organizations that are catalyst projects. So under tables 3 to table 7, you will see the projects that are highlighted in green.
Okay, so let's scroll down here. So I started at the top. You said table 3 is the first table to look at here.
Yes.
And so in order to be eligible for a rapid grant, you have to be recommended for funding, which means you're classified as a catalyst or a quick win project.
Right.
Okay, so let's find that table here. A lot of scrolling. Here we go. Table 3.
Yes.
So walk me through which projects here would be eligible for a rapid grant potentially.
So again, that first category of organizations that can apply for the rapid is going to be under table 3 through table 7. So table 3, if we're looking at this table green, the highlighted in green, so it'll be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first 5. So those are the ones that will be highlighted if you notice in green. And then we're looking at the amount that they were recommended for. So that last column is what we're looking at, not the grant request. So any tables from 3 to 7 that you see, the ones that are highlighted in green, those are the ones eligible to apply.
Okay.
And then number 2 will be small quick wins, which is on table 8.
Okay, so let's jump to quick wins in a second. I want to hold on table 3 for a second here, just to clarify. So again, we're looking at nonprofit organizations. So regardless of whether you're recommended for funding, you have to be a nonprofit to apply for the rapid round. But then you have to be recommended for funding, and I think you put it well. So looking at that last column here, these are the organizations that were recommended for funding in table 3. And there's subsequent tables that have other groups of organizations that we'll get to in a second.
Exactly.
So these orange supplemental proposals down here, you'll notice have a 0 in the recommended funding over here. So those organizations, are they able to apply for a rapid grant?
Unfortunately, I cannot tell anybody can apply, but of course, those are not recommended for funding, and they have a 0 in that last column. Unfortunately, they're not able to apply for this specific funding category.
Yes, absolutely. And so I think one of the key things to understand is that if you're applying in that rapid round, and again, anybody's welcome to apply for whatever round you'd like to, but if you're applying in that rapid round, your funding request has to be less than or equal to that recommended funding amount.
Exactly.
So if your recommended funding amount is 0, you can apply, but the maximum that you could request is 0. So maybe you wouldn't want to apply in this category. Okay, making that clear. Follow-up question. So I know we talked about requesting $2 million or less in the rapid round. So I see some organizations here that were recommended right at the $2 million level, some that were above the $2 million level. If you're recommended for more than $2 million, are you still able to come in the rapid round?
That's up to you. That's a choice that you have to make. So if you have to kind of explore other funding categories to see which one fits best, or which one is great for your project, but are you willing to sacrifice those dollars to come down to $2 million or less?
Sure.
'Cause that's what the rapid grant funding category is about.
Absolutely. So you can drop your request.
Right.
So if you were originally recommended 40 million or 10 million, and you want to drop your funding request to 2 million, that would be acceptable, and you could come in the rapid round. Perfect. So let's just walk through here some of the other tables. We don't have to go in as much depth on the others, but just to help folks understand that there's a couple tables on here. So here's table 4. So again, we've got the green projects and the orange ones, and we're really focusing on the ones that are recommended for funding under the rapid, that are nonprofits.
Exactly.
Okay. And let's keep going here. I think there's a couple more tables.
Yes.
I'm sorry for making folks seasick with all the scrolling. So table 5, we've got 2 more potential applicants here.
Yes.
And there's one more table. Here we go, table 6. So some more projects that were recommended for funding. Okay. And now we'll jump over to table 7. So this one is proposals outside of a geographic focus area. Is there any, there's no green out here. Help me out. I'm colorblind actually, so this is difficult for me.
That's fine. So there's no green on here. So
wanted to confirm.
Yes.
Thank you. So any of these proposals were all recommended for $0.
Exactly.
Rapid, probably not the best fit for them, but it's
yeah.
up to them to decide, right?
Right.
They would not be able to request more than 0.
Right.
Probably not the best idea to come in under
Exactly.
rapid. Okay. And then there's one more table on here. Table 8, and so I'm not seeing any color at all on this table. So these are not the catalyst or the supplemental projects.
No. One thing that I wanted to point out, because if you go not the table under the tables, if you wanted to just look at your funding or your project, your proposal, there's a brief description, but if you see a big C, that means you're a catalyst project. If you're colorblind like Ryan, you will see a big C under those that could potentially apply for this category.
Okay, so here's an example of that here. Yep, so that's another way to tell if you're a catalyst project.
Exactly.
Looking for that C. If you're colorblind like me, that might be a more user-friendly way of figuring it out.
Yep.
And then let's jump back to the quick wins here. So these are
Yes.
not catalysts, but they still were recommended for funding.
Exactly. So table 8 has those small quick win proposals that were recommended for funding. So that's a second way to look at who's eligible to apply for the rapid round. So any of these, again, we're looking at that last column, the amounts in that last column, the recommended funding. And of course, you have to be willing to drop down your amount if you're over $2 million in that last column.
Absolutely. All right. So I think that's a good kind of overview of helping folks understand if this is the round for them.
Right.
So how many organizations are we talking about here that might be coming in as a rapid grant
I think
proposal?
it's about 30 to 35-ish.
Okay.
If my math is correct. But yeah, it's about 30 to 35 organizations that we're looking at. But yeah, great segue actually. Why is there only 30 to 35?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, of course, LB 531, the statute the bill that enables us to make this program possible here, requires that DED prioritize those proposals in the coordination plan here. So this is one of the ways that we're prioritizing those proposals. And like you said so well early on in the session here, these are for quick wins. These are for rapid projects, right? We're trying to get organizations that can utilize these funds really quickly and make a quick impact in those communities. So this is our way of making sure that those organizations are prioritized and are able to come in and make a quick impact if they were one of those that were recommended for funding in the coordination plan.
Right.
So if you're not one of the organizations that were recommended for funding, there are other categories on our website here. Under application information, you can explore some of the other application cycles that are currently open, as well as we've posted dates for the upcoming application cycles. And we'll be talking about one of those a little bit later today, the Youth Talent and Workforce Development, which is currently open. So you're not completely shut out if you weren't recommended.
Right.
You are more than welcome to apply for any of those other categories, but the rapid category is really reserved for those that were recommended for funding in the coordination plan.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to jump over to the application now. If you're not interested in applying for rapid, you might want to drop off and come back a little bit later. You're welcome to stay on if you're curious.
Yes.
But we're going to walk through specifically for those organizations that are going to be applying for rapid grants, what to watch for in the application. So I'm going to click the Apply Now button under Rapid Grants. And that's going to open up a screen here that gives me some basic information about the rapid program and some various useful information there.
Right.
If I'm applying and I've never applied for funds from DED before, never worked in Amplifund, this is our application portal, I'm going to click Apply. And what if I don't have an account? What do I do at this point?
Great question. That register button is your friend if you do not have an account. So the register button, you click that and then you create your account with Amplifund.
Perfect. So that's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Fill out the fields here and then register on the bottom. We walked through that in the previous round, the previous application workshop as well. So hopefully you're up to speed on how to get logged into Amplifund. So we've got our test account in here. We're going to log in, and once you're logged in, you can click apply. And I'm going to go ahead and start a new application for this demo here. So we can call this a live test. Oop, if I could spell, there we go, live test. So first thing that I want to talk about in the application is the requested funding amount.
Yep.
One thing I want to note here is you mentioned early on that this is for projects that are requesting less than $2 million.
Right.
So let's look at what happens if I am a rule breaker and I want to request $3 million.
Okay.
All right, so we get a message that pops up here, and again, reminds you, $2 million is the maximum request here.
Right.
If you're looking to request more than that, you might want to explore the program manual and look at some of those other application rounds.
Exactly.
Okay. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to actually jump over to the application forms section here, and I want to hit on part 1, specifically looking at some of the documents that are going to be required for organizations that are applying for this. So you'll want to fill out all of these fields that are required. But let's walk through down here this question: are you a private entity, a public entity, or a nonprofit?
Exactly.
So I know that you've mentioned eligible organizations are nonprofits.
Exactly.
If I click on private entity, I'm going to get a red note here to remind me that this is for nonprofits.
Right.
Same thing with a public entity. So
Exactly.
nonprofit is the one that you'll want to select if you are a nonprofit applying for this.
Right.
Can you give us a quick overview of what types of documents I should be preparing if I'm thinking about applying as a nonprofit that are going to be requested in the application here?
Yeah. So like you see on the screen here, there is going to be like the articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and your financial statements, of course. All those are pretty much, to proof that, yes, you're an established nonprofit eligible to apply for this grant. One thing I believe also looking at this form is your IRS documents. Again, part of that those financial documents are required.
Yeah, perfect. So it'll lay out everything that's required right here.
Exactly.
If you have questions about it, I would encourage folks to jump into the application, start getting familiar with what's going to be requested here.
Right.
I'm going to jump over then to the threshold section next, and we're just kind of scratching the surface on this application today, since there's a limited pool of eligible
Yes.
applicants that are probably going to be applying for this.
Right.
But I just want to throw in a quick plug that if you're stuck on any part of the application, myself or Abra is more than willing to help out and answer any questions.
Absolutely.
And our contact information is listed on the website. So this threshold question section in part 3 is really helpful.
Yes.
Because I think it kind of walks you through eligibility. If our opening section talking about the coordination plan
Right.
was confusing, this should clear things up.
Exactly.
So that first question here, is the project you are applying listed in the coordination plan or appendices? Of course, has to be yes,
Yes.
or you're not eligible.
Exactly.
Okay. So if I say no here, I'm going to get an error message. And it's going to ask for your proposal ID number and there's some other questions here to kind of prove that you are in the coordination plan or appendices.
Right.
Okay. This next question here that I want to touch on, was your project recommended for funding in the coordination plan? So we've kind of talked about this, but
Yes.
Can you just refresh our memory one more time? What is that? What are we referring to when we're talking about recommended for funding?
Yeah, so we're looking at those catalyst projects in the coordination plan. So that very first link when we went to the coordination plan, catalyst project, or the ones that are highlighted in green, or a big C next to your project description, And as well as that, table 8, which will be the small quick wins proposals.
Absolutely. So if you fit into one of those categories, you're going to answer yes here.
Yes.
It's going to take you through some questions to enter how much your project was recommended for. And it'll make sure that you're requesting less than or equal to $2 million here as well. So there's a couple of safeguards to make sure that you are under the limit for the rapid round.
Right.
And then, as Abra mentioned here, it's going to take you through, were you a catalyst project? So thinking back to those green C's, if you say no here, are you a quick win project? So
Right.
that's table
8.
Yep. And if you say no to both of them, then, and the reason is because I know this is a part that sometimes people get hung up on. So first I'll notice right now it shows that my award requested is 0, but I don't see any way to edit this. So how do I change my award request?
Then you have to go back to the first section where it was asking for that award amount. Because you do need to enter your requested amount before it populates in the budget.
Perfect. So that's why it's always best to start at the beginning and work your way through. But if you do find that you didn't type that in, you're always welcome to go back and save. Oh, it's going to ask us to complete everything. So that's another nice feature here. It'll make sure that you're filling out everything that you're supposed to. So we'll save. Now when we hop over to the budget, we've got that award request of $2 million that we typed in that previous screen.
Exactly.
So can you walk us through, I see there's a couple different budget categories on here. I also see create a new category. What kind of budget items can I include in this application?
So this is really like you do your own design kind of work for the budget. We've included a couple suggestions for you. If you're very welcome to use them, but you can also incorporate your own budget categories. So you know your project best, and you know what's needed for your project. So here's a great way to include you creating your own categories to kind of know, okay, kind of also guide us into what you're doing with the funding. So if you choose, you can create a new category. Ryan just highlighted that. You can give it a name.
Yep. So whatever that budget category name might be,
Exactly.
you click create.
One good thing, one quick thing, Ryan, when you're creating the new, because I just saw that description box, it'll be really super helpful if you can give a good description so that I mean, you know your project again, but we don't really know what the category is for. Maybe you have it in mind, but we don't know what it is for. So that description box, if you could make it very, very detailed so that we can know, okay, this is what this category is for, this is what this line item is for.
Yes, absolutely. This will make both of our lives a lot easier
Right.
down the road if and when you're awarded, because that'll just help us understand your project better. It'll help us be able to approve expenses that you're submitting so that we can very easily identify which budget categories that goes under.
Right.
So, yep, just clicking that plus button as I demonstrated here when you're ready to create a line item under a category. Entering the name, the cost, and the narrative, as I mentioned. As you fill that out, that will show up on this budget here, and you'll be able to see if your expenses match the award that you're requesting here. So one note of advice that I'll give everyone is make sure this budget is balanced. I would really spend a lot of time on the budget, make sure it's good,
Right.
And make sure that this budget is balanced, because it will not let you submit this application if you don't have a balanced budget. Right now it says here the total overall budget cost must be $0. I have had many sad, crying phone calls at 5:01 p.m.
Oh, gosh.
after the deadline of people that have not been able to balance their budget. So
no.
don't save that for the last minute. Do it at noon on the day it's due, or 3
Right.
days before it's due, which is a good question, actually. When is the last day to submit for rapid grants?
It'd be October 10th.
Okay.
5 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes, and that is at 5 p.m. So if you try to submit at 5:01, the system will lock you out. Please submit early and often, as I like to
Yes.
say. So after the applications are submitted for Rapid, What happens next? Are we scoring these? Is there some sort of competitive process, or what is the process for Rapid?
Well, the good thing about Rapid is they're not scored. Actually, yeah. Why are they not scored?
Yeah, so you're right. They're not competitively scored.
Yeah.
It's a non-competitive round. And again, this is because these are projects that were already identified as projects that were recommended for funding in the coordination plan. So as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, you're requesting less than $2 million, you're recommended for funding, you're a nonprofit, you fill out a complete application, and you have all of the supporting documentation that you need, that is just going to be a threshold review check on our end. So
Right.
we're going to be making sure that you check all those boxes, and then we'll be making awards just based on that. So they're not being weighted against each other. Again, this is a quick win, rapid kind of a process.
Right.
So that'll definitely speed up our ability to make these awards
Exactly.
and to get these funds out into the community as quickly as possible.
Right.
So we're going to take a question or two from the audience, if there are any. While you're thinking of any questions, you're welcome to put those comments in the comments section of this live stream. And I'm not sure if we'll get any questions. We'll see. But we do have one question that we've been receiving a good amount that we wanted to address right off the bat while you're thinking of questions. And that is, what happens if I was a nonprofit, I'm in the coordination plan or appendices, but I wasn't recommended for funding as a catalyst or a quick win project. And so I'm determining, yeah, this isn't the best category for me because I really can't request funding because I
Right.
wasn't recommended. What happens with those nonprofits that had some really interesting and impactful projects?
Right.
What do we do?
Well, again, you can explore any other funding categories. There are 8 categories in the that NSORG program, so you can explore any of the categories, see which one fits best. Again, that's section 3 on the program manual will be your best friend because that's where you get to compare all those categories. Also, for organizations, if you want to go back to after that section 3, of course,
Sure, yep.
I do want to show that section 3 because there are different descriptions for the various funding categories that are available where you found the rapid grants.
Yep.
So you can just read through, and there are several other program managers also assigned to these categories. If you have additional questions, of course, you can always contact Ryan or the program manager. But if you do want to go back to that, the coordination plan real quick,
Sure.
there is a section. So one question that I've gotten. So I'm not a catalyst project, so not that C or the green one, but rather in a, I want to call it, am I colorblind too? Maybe I want to call it coral or
Yeah, something
pink
like
coral
that.
color,
Yep. So
or a
any of
big
these,
S.
for example.
So what do I do? I mean, I'm in the coordination plan, Ryan. What's going on?
Yeah.
Why am I not eligible?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bunch of supplemental projects, right, that were not recommended for funding. They were identified as, strong proposals. So again, this rapid round that we're talking about right now is probably not the best round for them because they were recommended for $0 here. But I do want to point out in our program manual here, under the rapid grants, we do have a brief blurb here about a possible subsequent round of rapid. I'm going to put a big asterisk right here and say this is a possible subsequent round. So this is to be determined. We may or may not be able to do this depending on how many requests we get in the other rounds and kind of what the fund looks like at that point.
Right.
But I would encourage folks, like you said, first of all, to explore those other 8 funding categories. And if you identify a good fit in one of those other funding categories, by all means, please apply for those as a supplemental project. You will get prioritization points in the competitive scoring of those other rounds.
Exactly.
However, there is a chance we may be able to extend a second rapid round to projects that did not receive a funding recommendation. We'll release more details about that in the coming months. Again, after this initial round of those 8 application cycles, unfortunately, I can't provide more information on that today because we're kind of waiting to see how these first set of applications come in before making a decision on this. But
Absolutely.
Just keep that in mind. There's potentially a place for you there. And I'll also just mention, too, that the Department of Economic Development has a bunch of different resources. Explore our website. Look at some of the other programs we have available. We have, for example, a shovel-ready program for nonprofits that might be a good fit for
Right.
folks that were not recommended as a Catalyst or Quick Win. So lots of different options to explore, potential other options down the road, but that's just something to keep in mind. And you're welcome to use us as a resource. If you're wanting to learn more about DED's other opportunities, we can help you navigate the website and some of the options available.
And final note to that is also joining the mailing list on our website, because that's how
Absolutely.
you get notified
Yep.
if
So
there are other programs
that
that are
is-
opening up.
Yep, that's on the very bottom here. Join our mailing list. If you haven't already, please sign up for that so that you can be in the loop. So do we have any other questions in the audience right now? Okay, nothing yet. So we're going to actually take a short break here, and we'll come back in a couple minutes for the Youth Talent and Workforce Development application workshop. So
Absolutely.
thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you in a minute.